Hey friends, Mick here, and I'm here today because my new friends at STL Tones have an exciting new Tone Hub update that allows you to capture or trace your analog amps and pedals. According to STL, the Tone Hub Tracer is powered by advanced AI tracing technology. It can learn and replicate the sounds of your analog amplifiers, pedals, and recording rigs, including your cabs, mics, and preamps as well. Adaptive tracing allows users to capture the analog modeling of amplifier and pedal circuits. This ensures that you can adjust controls while preserving the original device's exact sound and characteristics. Currently, my setup is the PV5150-212 combo. I'm using the red channel, and then I am boosting it with an Ibanez Tube Screamer Mini. Here, I'm miking the speaker with an SM57 microphone, and that is going directly into my UAD Apollo Twin interface. I'm using the API preamp and then some EQ and color for some tone shaping as well. So today, I want to show you exactly how STL's Tone Hub Tracer works. I'm going to be walking you through the process of capturing my rig as a whole and then capturing my amp and pedals separately. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is load up an instance of STL Tone Hub in your DAW. You're gonna be greeted with this tracing amplifier. You have your head up here with its parameters. You have your cab down here with its parameters. Below that, we have this new GUI where we have our input. We have a gate, a tuner, stomp, our amp and cab options, EQ, effects, etc. Kind of like the standard for most amp sims. We'll get into this a little bit later as we enter further into the tracing process. So to start tracing, I'm going to go to the left in the middle where it says tracer, and I need to select my tracing type. So for me, I'm using my 5150 boosted with a cab mic'd up. So I'm going to select tracing rig, and then I'm going to hit proceed. So step one of this process is to locate the tracer tone audio file. So if I hit locate, I'll find tracer tone right here in this folder. And what you need to do is bring that tone into your DAW, which I have already done. So up here, what we have is essentially a DI signal that has an amalgamation of clicks and pops, white noise, static. We've got guitar DI, we've got bass DI, and they're all playing various different styles. We've got reverse DIs on both ends as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this tracer tone and you are going to run it out of one of the outputs of your interface into something like a reamp box or a load box, depending on what you're doing. Because I'm reamping and I don't have a load box, I need to make sure my cab is plugged in. It's a combo amp, so no issue there. But if you are doing some reamping, make sure you are properly loading your hardware equipment. We're going to run this DI file out of my interface into my reamp box, back into my amp, mic'd up, and then that is going back into one of the inputs on my interface. So for me, I've got to come here in Reaper and use this reinsert. Line 3 is the out on UAD, and then coming back into line 1, I'm going to make sure that this track is armed with line 1 selected. Good to go there. So before I get reamping, there's a few things I want to let you guys know about. The first one being that when you record your amp, when you record this DI going back into your amp and then into your interface, the loudest you want it is right about -5 dBFS. Anything louder than that, any digital clipping is going to affect the quality of the tracer tone. So try to keep it right at about -5 at the loudest parts of this DI tracer signal. The second thing being is if you have a gate, you definitely want to turn that gate off. The 5150 I'm using is a noisy, hissy beast, so I have it on right now. But before I reamp, I'm going to turn that gate off. This is going to ensure that nothing is being gated out of the signal and that the tracer tone is able to go into the amp as pure as possible so that when you essentially process this tone, you're going to get the best representation of your gear possible. So I'm going to start by reamping this. I'm going to turn my gate off, a little hissier, and I'll fast forward through this process because this can take quite a while. Okay, now that the reamping is done, we need to export the reamped trace tone file and then re-import it into STL Tone Hub. So tracer reamp 5150 rig. Red. So on step number 2 of the setup process, we now need to hit import. Proceed. So the default training mode is suitable for tracing clean, low, and mid-gain tones. The advanced training mode is suitable for tracing high gain and fuzz tones. This mode has a longer training time. So yeah, it's a bit longer. Last time I did this, it took my computer about 25 to 30 minutes. And I think on average, it's about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on your computer's processing power. Make sure you have GPUs selected if you have a better GPU or video card. If not, if you have like just kind of like a computer that maybe struggles with some stuff, I would probably use CPU instead. But for the average user out there, GPU. And then we just hit start tracing. So let's run a few of these, one with the screamer on, one with the screamer off. That way we can try other boosts in front of the amp, and then one with just the screamer by itself. That way we can see how well tonehub tracer does tracing pedals just by themselves. This is going to take a little bit of time, so I will be back in just a bit. Okay, now that I'm done tracing, let's hit proceed. From here, what you can do is you can dial in your settings to match these settings on the amp. And then for the tone stack, you want to select what amp you're using. So right off the bat, down to PV, 5150. Let's move the cab over slightly. I was right about at the edge of the dust cap when the dust cap meets the cone. Gain at just above 3. Bass just above 5. Mids down to mid 3. Treble slightly down. Presence at 7-ish. Resonance was like cranked. Masters at just above 3. And I'll just touch this up a hair. Now I'm going to hit match settings to trace. Okay, for a trace name, this is going to be 5150 red boosted. You want to save it in a folder. Select your gain type. This is high gain, instrument, guitar, notes. So this is 5150 212 combo with Ibanez TS SM57 UAD API pre-EQ. Down here, again, PV 5150 cabinet 212 combo SM57 Ibanez TS or tube screamer mini, and we'll hit save. Okay, so tracing process complete. Let's see what it sounds like. Sounds pretty chunky. Sounds like my 5150. Maybe just a touch more gain. Let's go to like 4. Probably a touch more bass too. 6.5. Mids are good. Let's try that. See what that sounds like. That feels a little bit better. That feels a little bit more responsive. Retry. Let's try messing with the cab a little bit. So theoretically, the more I push the mic outside of the dust cap, the more kind of cloudy it should get. It definitely gets a little bit more boxy out there, but there's also a little bit more mid content. So maybe if you're trying to dial in more of a lead sound and you need to blend a mic that way, that probably works. For this, it just kind of serves the purpose of showing you that it actually does something, but that's cool. I'm gonna keep it back over here. This is more of like a rhythm tone for me, so I don't wanna mess that up too much. Cool. That definitely sounds like my amp with the pedal. All right, let's check out the raw version. So it's got a little bit more bottom end. Obviously, there's no tube screamer on this one. It's definitely less gained because also no boost, but also just has less gain on this particular tone stack. Let's throw one of STL's boosts on the front of it. Let's try their overdrive. We'll set it to similar settings that mine was at. So keep the drive at 0, put the tone up slightly, and let's move the bounce to like 7-ish. Now let's try messing with the tone stack. A little bit more gain. Let's go to like there. A little bit more bass. Let's pump the mids up. Drop the treble a hair. Drop that presence down a little bit. Cool, that's definitely different. All right, let's try notching out a couple treble frequencies. So typically on this 5150 combo amp with the stock speakers, the PV Sheffields, it can get pretty whistly in that like 5.5 to 7K area. So let's notch out some of these frequencies. That one only goes to 4K, but that's okay. 4K can sometimes be that like SM57 whistle. So we're just gonna take that down 2 dB, give it a smaller bandwidth. Maybe like right there. This one we're gonna put to like 6K, 6.2, that's fine. Same thing, right around 2 dB. And make that a little bit smaller as well. High pass, let's go for like a lead tone. It's high pass at like 100, low pass at like 11. Turn this on. So definitely a little bit more mid chunky, kind of a little bit more focused. Let's throw some effects on there. Got some delay. Where's my dotted eighth at? That'll work. 20%, 20%-ish. That should work. Yeah, sounds pretty cool, man. That's definitely that's up my alley. Oh yeah, so before I forget, let's try this with the Ibanez Tube Screamer Mini that I captured and see kind of how close it is. All right, so I think it needs a little bit more on that low end. Let's put that up to like 6, maybe a kick more on the treble, maybe a little bit more on the gain. Yeah, pretty cool. I think that works. So one of my favorite parts about this whole thing is the Trace Exchange. And Trace Exchange is essentially where people can upload their traces. So their heads, their head and cap combos, their full rigs, just their pedals. So far, there's a couple really cool things on there. But the one thing I've been playing around with more than anything is this Morgan Custom Shop. Now, from my understanding, this is more of like a clean amp or a pedal platform. I've never played one of these in person, but you know, I feel like I have high gain for the most part covered. I need something that can handle a little bit more of the clean and low gain stuff. So let's check this out. Pretty cool, pretty twangy. For me, especially with this guitar, I like to do the split coil in the center position. Drop the gain a little bit. Up the bass, drop some of the mids, up the presence and the resonance. So this is definitely one of those amps where like, I don't know if I ever would really like write music with this. Just I'm typically more of like a metal player, but you know, this is one of those things where it's just fun to play on. Like I love that kind of edge of breakup sound, you know, give a little bit of delay and reverb just to put yourself in some kind of ambiance. And then I can just kind of like tune out and just jam around on some chords. And, you know, sometimes that's what you need to do. You just need to relax a little bit and play some guitar and have some fun. All right, so in my honest opinion, this is basically the best of both worlds. It's your amp with your exact settings, your cab, your mic, wherever you want it on the cab, going into whatever processing you want, putting all of that into the box, basically into what is your own custom amp sim. Now, if you want, whether or not you boosted, if you unboosted, you get to choose whatever you want to put in front of the amp, or if you want to put like 4 boosts on in front of the amp, you can do that as well. If you want to adjust the tone stack, which the tone stack is designed to replicate as close as it can to the amp that you're actually using. So when you go to adjust the tone stack, it does a fairly good job respecting the realistic tone stack of the style of amp, which is pretty awesome. If you need to adjust the cab slightly in the digital realm, you know, you can go down there. You can move the cab more towards the center of the cone to get more of that presence and more of that kind of sharp attack. You can move it out a little bit to kind of wash it out, get a little bit more mid sound in there. This is one of those things like I find it would be incredibly useful for a couple different reasons. I think the first one being for me specifically is that I can't always crank my 5150 up to like 3, 4 to really get that volume pushing those speakers, you know? So I want to feel inspired when I play, and I want that particular sound. So when I'm tracking, and if I'm tracking like early in the morning or like super late at night, and I don't want to wake anybody up, you know, I can just throw this plugin on, and this is going to be the closest recreation to what I'm actually using in the room. And that for me is like so huge. Being able to have multiple instances going at once, or, you know, if I happen to one day, hopefully get a load box and just capture the power amp and preamp section of the head. And if I wanted to, I could play around with some external cab IRs or whatever cab IRs come with this. That would be cool too. Although I kind of prefer to avoid that. That to me is really where you get in trouble with amp sims. Just so many IRs everywhere. There's so many IRs. There's a lot of good ones. That's the problem. There's too many good ones to choose from. But I love being able to basically clone my amp and then take it with me wherever I want to go. I want to put this on my laptop, and if I'm on vacation, I want to be able to jam out, write some riffs. Cool, I've got my tone. Or if I'm recording and I can't use my tube amp at the time, but I want to make sure that whatever DI I'm tracking, it's going to give me a similar response that my amp is going to give me. So if I'm playing through this captured rig, I know that my pick attack and my pinch harmonics and other things, other little things that you don't necessarily always think of when tracking with amp sims, that it's going to translate into the reamping phase. So there's a ton of things. There's so many benefits to this. And honestly, I think, you know, the whole, I've complained about this before, but like option paralysis with amp sims, this kind of takes it away because you're already getting your tone that you've dialed in the room. You know, you don't have to worry about switching heads or switching cabs if you don't want to. It's optional here. You know, for me, I can just get my rig, put it in here, and then adjust it a little bit more if I need to. And to me, rather than being like too many more options, it becomes just another way to enhance my experience as a guitarist when I'm playing. And man, that's amazing. All right, y'all, that is it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this overview of the STL tonehub tracer. I definitely had so much fun with this plugin, and I really think it's incredibly useful if you're wanting to capture your own home studio setup. That being said, if you're interested in checking out STL tonehub, head on over to stltones.com to download it and check it out today. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Subscribe for more videos, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.